Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Good evening, folks. We have a little bit of a technical difficulty with the guest. His audio it's working, but you don't want to hear it right now because it's kind of like it's almost deafened me. And Jeff, I think Jeff's already going a little bit deaf. But without further ado, let's bring on our first guest, Jeff from Ghost Tech Paranormal. How you doing, my friend?
All well, thank you, Ollie. All good.
How's Andy? Is he sorting out his audio?
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, to be quite honest. We've been trying to rectify the problem for over half an hour now. So Andy is now moving his laptop to a completely different part of the house. Hopefully that will stop this, whatever interference it is. We don't know where it's coming from. He can't hear anything at his end, but there's like this low hum and a very high pitched noise. But to be quite honest, this interview's been cursed for some time now.
We've tried to do this 3 times.
We have. This is the 3rd time. The first time Andy was ill. And then when we arranged for the second interview, he was in a car accident. He's still not fully recovered, but he agreed to come on the show this evening. And now we're having this sort of audio difficulty. As I say, he's moving to a different part of the house, and we're just going to have to wait and see if it's been rectified or not.
I'm not convinced that'll fix the problem, but we'll see what happens. He probably just needs to download Chrome on his iPhone. But Jeff, if you wouldn't mind starting us off, so you and the guys, Ghost Tech Paranormal team. In fact, Jeff, for anybody who doesn't know who you are, if you introduce your channel while we're here, and then take us through a little bit of the background of what got you interested in 30 East Drive.
Yeah, so we're Ghost Tech Paranormal. We've been going for quite some time now, I guess 20 years plus. And we have our own YouTube channel. So everyone can see our first investigation at 30 East Drive, which is also known as the Black Monk House.
You might want to get that, Jeff, because that might be Andy.
Just let me grab this.
Yeah, no problem. only on live shows, guys. Jeff, I'm just gonna drop you out a second. You can't make this. You just cannot make it up. But yeah, Jeff's now hopefully talking Andy through this. The guy's a writer. Obviously he's not. Well, I'm not switched on with technology, but this is why I try to avoid live shows, guys. I'm going to stay in this house with these guys at some point, maybe this year, if things calm down, which they seem to be doing. I'm having technical issues now, but I'm going a little bit. I'm getting a hot flush, getting a little bit of a tickle on here. See what Jeff's doing. Is he having a chat with him?
You're back on the show, so we'll take it from there. Okay, mate. Thank you. Yeah, if you carry on taking over, Ollie, just bear with me a moment. I'll be back to you in 1 minute.
Oh, are you trying to help him out? Yeah, get him to download Chrome on his iPhone if worst case scenario. Jeff, when you do come back on, because I can see you in a little screen at the bottom. If you do a little dance, I'll know that you're ready to come on.
Oh, thanks so much.
Okay. So yeah, while we're waiting, how is everybody in the chat? Let's have a look. We got Rich Northwood. How you doing, my good friend? Hang tight, Anti-Media Zombie, Caroline, as Rich would say in the TV set. Poltergeist, quite fitting. We've got Light Skies, we've got Hobber Mallow, we've got Artisan, my friend, always a long-term subscriber of the channel. James Clark, Sharon. I wonder if we've got anybody from like nearby the town. have we got anybody from Pontefract that's happened to see this go up, this link, that maybe has been to this house? So this house, for anybody that doesn't know about it, that's maybe in the States or whatever, there is a film about this house, which we're probably going to speak about, called When the Lights Went Out. And that is, I don't have the little, I thought I had a little thumbnail for it, but I don't. But it's not a bad little movie. The house in question that we're going to be talking about doesn't, if you saw it, I think Jeff might be. Jeff, are you? Yep, Jeff's giving me the fun up, but you've saved me. Tell us about the house, because I was just about to do that and probably butcher it. So yeah, you were saying Ghost Tech Paranormal. What got you interested in this particular house?
Well, 30 East Drive, the Black Monk house, is known as the most haunted, evil location in Europe, as some say, perhaps the world. So we saw this place, and again, we wanted to know if what goes on there is actually true or not. On our investigation, we did come across lots of weird stuff. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I had a message today from someone. I put out the notice that we were going to be on this show today to do this interview with Andy, and some guy said, "Listen, I've been there a couple of times. I think it's all fake, and it's the next door neighbour that's that's making noises and hyping it all up." But to be honest, when we went there, we were barely in the house several minutes before things started to happen. It is a weird place. As soon as you walk in, it's well, you do sort of feel as if you're stepping back into the 1970s, because there's posters on the wall of Starsky and Hutch. All the furniture is the old 70s stuff. You know, it's really a weird place, and you can feel the atmosphere change as soon as you walk in. Now, I don't want to say too much about the place until we speak to Andy, because Andy has been studying this case for years upon years. And as I say, he brought out the book, Don't Look Back in Anger. And he's been studying records and to get to the true story of the Black Monk that people have seen there. So hopefully when Andy comes on, he'll be able to tell us the history of the location, what went on before the houses were built there. And we've got to keep in mind that this focuses not just the film, but all the media attention that went on there focused around the Pritchard family. But there was another family before them that actually moved into the house when it was new, you know, when it was a new place. And when the Pritchard family did move in, whatever was their focus, its anger, its evil on the children and the family that was there. But the family that first moved into the place, even though it wasn't reported in newspapers or anything like that, they also went through something similar, which I can talk about, you know, as the story unfolds. So hopefully Andy will be with us soon. As I say, this has been cursed since the first day we was trying to get Andy onto the show, you know. And as I say, he's still not 100% fit because of the accident that he had. So hopefully he'll be with us shortly.
I noticed in your what you documented, what was it, 2-3 years ago, nearly 3 years ago,
Yeah.
you said that it was the most haunted, the most evil poltergeist in the world. But now you kind of, when you refer it back to me, you say in Europe. So there is.
It's because of all the reports that have gone on there. I mean, obviously, you know, there've been so many other researchers that have looked into this, other paranormal teams, and that's what they say. You know, they've been there, they've experienced things.
Sorry to cut you off there, Jeff. Is it normal to see this when you go and investigate any of these houses? Have you seen these kind of signs before?
A few times, but at 30 East Drive, before you actually go in, they ask you to sign a waiver in case you get injured or hurt, and that sign is up there. I guess they just want to cover themselves to make sure that if you do decide to go there, that if you do get injured, it's down to you.
And you guys, you spent 2 nights there, but you didn't stay the night. But you're going back there hopefully this year, and I may be coming along for the ride for maybe one of the nights. But you're not allowed to stay in that house. You got to kind of get permission from the owner to be able to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, you can. They do say that you can stay there, and they ask you to bring your own bedding, whatever you need, but it's at your own risk.
Right.
So, we do plan on going back there later this year. Just trying to get everything together because we want Andy to come along because we want to interview him there at the house. With yourself, you've never been to. Well, you've always said you've never been to a haunted location, so we decided to say, well, let's throw you in the deep end because obviously you're a big skeptic. And we're going to hire the place for a few nights. And on the first night, we're going to set up and do our investigation. There's 3 bedrooms and there's a couch downstairs. We'll draw straws, who gets what. And unfortunately, whatever you get, that's where you'll be staying the night and see how long you last. And also to experience anything that happens yourself.
Before you went to Pontefract, 30 East Drive, were you suspicious that it could be something going on with the next door neighbour, or?
To be honest, when we do go to any of these locations, even if there is a next door neighbour or if the house is not fully detached, we do take that into consideration, and we do sort of our own little testing to make sure that it's not.
So Andy has just dropped in. So Andy, I'm going to pull you up in a moment. So don't worry, I can see that you're down below. But yeah, so my thing with that is I always wondered why the next door neighbour has not, moved. Because if I lived next door to that house,
they actually experience the same things.
Right. Okay.
But we spoke to the neighbour, and she experiences exactly the same type of things, not on a bigger scale, but they have done. So, they seem genuine people. And as I say, we when we went in there and heard the footsteps and stuff like that, we done all our testing ourselves. We looked everywhere to see if there was anything or anyone that could be falsifying evidence, and there wasn't.
So guys in the chat and anybody that's watching this not live, I do apologize now if Andy, when we bring him up, the sound is terrible. We don't know what it is. We've troubleshooted it, but it could be good. We don't know, and it's not.
Is it the same?
Well, if you just talk, then we might get away with it without.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Oh, we can hear. I'm not going to say okay, because there is still that strange high-pitched sound. And if anybody asks, it's not coming from the sword behind him, because you have moved room now. So Andy, tell us about East Drive, and you're going to have to just talk because
East Drive.
I think it might be good if Andy tells us the history of the area that East Drive is built on, because there was a bloody battle there. So tell us a little about that, Andy.
I mean, Pontefract's very historical. Castle dates back to well over 1,000 years. There were two Cluniac monasteries in Pontefract, one just outside of Pontefract Castle, and one were actually under what became the General Infirmary. They were Cluniacs, or French monks. A bloody history during there were two sieges at Pontefract Castle. Royalists took camp inside the walls of the castle, and Cromwell had much of his forces, his cannon fire, based up at Chequerfield, really close to East Drive. On one occasion, Royalists actually broke out at Castle, and there were bloody battle within 200 yards of 30 East Drive. And they were repelled back into Castle. So
how far back was it when you decided, I've got an interest in this house, I need to start doing investigations within the house?
I grew up with Story because I live about 2 miles away. Then we were known as the Pontefract Poltergeist when I was a kid. When I started working as a coal miner at Charleston Colliery had a deputy who were actually employed by the National Coal Board as an exorcist. So he'd go out to any pits that people said they'd seen an apparition or a ghost, and he'd exorcise them or whatever he did. And I can always remember when I started at the pit, Turf was telling me a story. In the film, a medium's called in, and that's actually based on Harold Turfer. He was the medium exorcist that were called in, and he was telling us loads of stories, especially on night shift, just to scare the crap out of us, basically. And that was just about it. I had no real interest in it. Then the film had just come out, and a friend at the time, we were on about writing a book. So I'd written a few books, nothing paranormal. And Steve went about getting together and writing a book, and he wanted to write a book. He'd history psychiatric as a psychiatric nurse, and I didn't. Obviously, 17 years as a coal miner, and this book was going to be about everyday hauntings. We didn't want to go to castles, we didn't want to go to stately homes. It was just everyday hauntings, people's houses, council houses. Steve then saw the film when the lights went out, and he'd not talk about anything else. I'd go and see him, and all he wanted to talk about was 30 East Drive. And you couldn't have a conversation with him other than 30 East Drive. It got to a point where it was one Sunday afternoon in summer. I says, "Look, Steve," I says, "jump in car, I'll take you to see house. I know house were empty. I know Bill Bungie had bought it just after film were released. When we got to house, we were like two petulant school kids creeping up to windows and trying to look through blinds and what have you. After about half an hour, we must have raised suspicion of Carol next door, and she came out and asked us what we were doing. And we explained to her that we were about writing a book, and we'd got this fascination about 30 East Drive. And out of blue, she says, "Do you want to go in?" I says, "What do you mean, do we want to go in?" And she got her handbag out, dangled keys in front of us. She says, "I look after the house, I live next door." At that point, I thought, Jesus, I weren't expecting this. So she took us to the door, she knocked on the door, opened it, and she says, "Hello, Fred, it's only me." And I was like, "Just hang on a minute, Carol." I says, "It's empty." She says, "Yeah, that's Fred's, is what the Pritchard family called the original Poltergeist." Anyway, she took us in, locked door. I says, "Why are you locking door?" She says, "Well, unfortunately, people come from all over the country, and if they see me coming in, I can go upstairs, and by the time I've got downstairs, kitchen's full of people. They've opened the door and stepped in." And she says, "It's about anyway." I said, "Who's about?" She says, "Fred." I said, "How do you know?" She said, "All them chairs in kitchen were pulled out from underneath tables." She says, "They were perfectly pushed under the table this morning." Then I looked on the side and there was a book, and when I looked closer, it was a Bible. I thought, how ironic it is to have a Bible in a supposedly haunted house. And I said, do you mind if I take some photos? So she says, take anything you want, but don't be posting them on social media and what have you. So I took some photos of the Bible, took some photos of chairs. Me and Steve pushed the chairs back under the table. Carol gave us a guided tour of the house, showed us Philip's bedroom, Diane's bedroom, Joan's bedroom, Jean's bedroom, sorry. And when we got to the top of the stairs coming down, she like slumped into the wall. And I says, are you okay? She says, yeah, but he's here. I says, who's there? She says, Fred. And to be honest, I was more concerned about taking some pictures on this old works iPhone that I weren't too bothered about Carol's health. But it was selfish, and I'm taking loads of pictures. And when we went downstairs, she got talking about the history of the East Drive. And she mentioned Father Michael, and so she mentioned Father Michael, as clear as anything, we had footsteps above us. But it weren't footsteps on a carpet, it were footsteps on a wooden floor. When we walked back into the kitchen, all chairs had been moved back out. When we had literally pushed them back in underneath that table ourselves. Steve said, I think that book's moved as well. And I says, well, I can tell you because I took photos prior to going upstairs, and this Bible had moved about 2 foot across the kitchen work surface. I thought, yeah, there's definitely something there. And after that, I was hooked. For 2 years.
Over 50 nights.
I spent over 100 nights, actually. I mean, when we were going into the house, all hype had stopped. Film had come out. They were giving guided tours. And when we first went into the house, nobody were really interested. I think a few paranormal teams occasionally went in. And what we did, thankfully, Carol let us in. And we could practically have free run a house. It was an old, empty, damp house. There were bits of furniture in, but it was just nobody were interested. We had free run a house practically.
These tours just recently with the tours, because I can remember this house as a kid. I never remembered people saying that they'd gone for walks round. Is this a recent thing?
Yeah, I mean, film had come out, and I think there was a lot of hype, but I think it died a death. People had lost interest, and people that was interested at the time, they'd been and done the overnights or the guided tours, and we could guarantee on most nights when we wanted to go in, we could go in. But we just nobody seemed interested. And
what's the weirdest thing that happened with did you stay the night with somebody else there as well, or on your own?
Yeah, I've never stayed the night on my own. I wouldn't.
Check Ollie out here by yourself. Listen, mate. When you come along with us, you'll be glad that we're all around you.
Yeah, I mean, there's some really strange things. I can remember once we were upstairs, and it was really quiet because at 30 East Drive, people expect to go in and all hell lets loose. It's not like that at all. Chances are when you can film, walk about with cameras, walk about with recording equipment, and you'll get nothing. When you sat down and just having a general natter, that's when you start hearing things, and things are happening. And it seems, I know it sounds strange, but it seems as though it's playful. You'll be upstairs when you'll hear noises downstairs, so you'll all go downstairs, you'll hear noises upstairs.
I mean, I mean the estate was built in the 1950s, and yeah. As Andy says, we're talking about the Pritchard family here, but they weren't the original people that moved into the place. They were the focus. They were the focus of the anger and the torment, whatever this thing was, to aim itself at them. The family to move there were the Farrer family. And it was Bill and Barbara, and they had a 2.5-year-old daughter called Jane. And they moved into the house in September 1954. And I mean, it was Bill that come out of the army, and he then became a firefighter, but they were waiting for a house. They were building this massive estate, and this house was built, 30 East Drive. They moved in there, and Bill always said, you know, the house was always cold, things were being moved, things would go missing. Barbara, his wife, over a short period of time, she became unsettled, withdrawn, unwell. Their 2.5-year-old daughter that stayed in Diane's room, who was the focus in the Pritchard family of the attacks, they would find blood and scratches on her face, even though she was wearing mittens. And they were hearing voices, slashes would appear in their furniture. And it was only just sort of by coincidence, Barbara was, Bill's wife, was walking down the road to the nearby shops there, bumped into Jean Pritchard. They got talking, and Barbara was unhappy staying in the place. And she said, you know, I'd like to move out there. And Jean Pritchard said, well, I've only got a 2-bedroom house. I'd love a 3-bedroom house. And they decided to swap over. But there is a mention by Bill Farrer, who said that Jean did mention when they stayed at number 47, the house that they were going to move from, that there was a ghost child there. There was a child of a ghost. But anyway, they decided to move. They swapped over houses, and they exchanged houses in May 1955. But just several days before they'd done the exchange, at 30 East Drive, Bill and Barbara were downstairs, and their daughter Jane started screaming. They went upstairs and they found the baby with a pillow over its face. I mean, so to get out of there for them was the best thing they could have ever done. But obviously this story was not told or focused by the media. I mean, it all started, you know, with the Pritchard family. Everyone thinks the Pritchard family moved straight into 30 East Drive, and it all started. It didn't. So to go back to just before all that, what the actual story is of a monk who was murdering children. That's what they say, and the local townspeople decided to take revenge, and they couldn't find him, so they got his brother and hung him. And his brother is the one that's allegedly there taking his revenge on whoever goes into 30th Drive.
Unfortunately, in the original investigation with Colin Wilson, a local historian, I forgot his first name, Cunniff, he supposedly unearthed some documents recording that very tale, that a monk, a Cluniac monk, had been murdering kids. There's no records anywhere. I've searched high and low for these references.
There isn't. No, there's not.
The only he was a priest to be hung at Pontefract. He was called Broadbent, and he was from a local village, South Kirby, about 8 miles away, and he'd been hung at Pontefract by Cromwell. Well, not by Cromwell, but by Roundheads for money laundering. Basically, he was dipping his toe in both sides to make money, and he's the only recorded priest or man of the cloth to ever been executed at Pontefract. So, I mean, I don't know where Cunniff got these documents, but there's no documents to suggest.
I mean, there is also the fact that they say that when they hung the monk, they threw him down the well. So number one, you wouldn't throw a dead body down a well to contaminate your water. But I will say this: during the Farrer family, when they stayed there, Bill said he could never get the place heated up. It was always cold. But he had workmen come round and lift up the floorboards to that place, and there is a well.
There is a well.
underneath.
I was just about to ask that.
There
It's
is a
un-
well.
It's underneath the house.
I have some documents. I've been to Town Hall at Pontefract, and some old hand-drawn maps dating back to 1600s, and there is reference to a water pump, which it would have evolved from being a well underneath the property, or where the property is now.
It's actually been seen by several people. In fact, one of the workmen, it is said that when they were lifting up the floorboards and they saw this well, we actually found a gold ring down there. But besides all that, what's actually happening now at 30 East Drive is the fact that if you're lucky enough, you will see this monk. But also there's a child of a girl, a ghost girl there. Yeah. But I actually think that ghost girl is the girl that's come from 47, number 47, where Jean Pritchard and their family was. I think that child followed them there anyway. Yeah, I'm not saying it's the ghost of one of the victims of the alleged monk. But it's a very strange place. I mean, this is the first time I've actually seen Andy. I mean, I saw you on a TV show. I believe you was on Paranormal Lockdown. Yeah. When they come over to do a show, they interviewed you. I didn't know Andy at all until we'd done our investigation. We put it out on YouTube. Me and then Andy got in contact, and Andy turned around and says it's the most true story to date that we've done on
what you're
East Drive.
Without doubt.
Out of all these other TV shows that wanted to hype it up and add things and fake things, and that's how I first got in contact with Andy. And we've always spoken, but we've never actually met up yet. We've never seen each other until this evening on this show. And as I say, when we do our return investigation at 30 East Drive, Andy's going to come along and give us a little bit of an interview there. It'd be great to see him in that place as well, you know. And as I said to Ollie earlier, whilst you was trying to sort out your audio, I actually had a message come through today after I put out the announcement that we was going to be on here tonight. Some guy said, oh, it's the lady next door that's faking all the evidence and making the noises and whatever.
We've been in and Kevin's been on holiday. There's been nobody next to.
Andy, can I ask you a favour, mate? I've just thought of a solution for the sound, because when you speak, it's not so bad, but it's the in between bits. So a bit like a walkie-talkie. Do you see the mute button at the bottom on the screen? On the screen, do you see a little mute button? Yeah. Yeah. So when you're not speaking, if you hit that, and when you are speaking, just unmute it. I think that'll help. Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect. But then just unmute it when you want to speak. So Andy, the times that you spent, you say it's nearly 100 nights in that house now.
Jesus, that's a lot of nights.
Yeah, I mean, did you see anything, or other than hearing things? Did you actually see anything?
On one occasion, I went into the house. I'd got no equipment. I'd got a works iPhone, and just Carol used to laugh because I turned up with a works iPhone for the first couple of weeks. Then I turned up with a little carrier bag with a SB7 spirit box or something. Then as time progressed, I turned up with an old doll, then a bloody suitcase, and some travel bags, and the worst thing I ever experienced, we'd got some motion detectors. Just come in our garden, you put them in your garage or your shed, and the alarm if it picks up a movement. And we'd put them upstairs. And within 15 minutes, they were triggering, and they were really loud. So we'd run upstairs, reset them, go back up, come back downstairs, they'd set off, and it got to about 11:30 one night, and I know Carol's got grandkids next door, and these motion detectors started triggering upstairs. So we always said that we'd always stick together, me and Steve. We wouldn't, if one went upstairs, both of us went upstairs, blah, blah. But I was in such a rush to get upstairs to turn these motion detectors off. I set off upstairs, and like I said, I've spent 17 years as a coal miner, and the only thing I can say was the darkest mass that were dropping on me from top of the stairs, and instinctively I thought it would fall aground, it will fall, and I got into a fetal position. It was just black as anything. Look at it, Steve would come behind me and he pulled me upstairs. I think most.
So he saw it as well.
Yeah.
I think people don't understand that. You can see this stuff. It's not just in the nighttime; it's in the daytime. We'd only been there 6 minutes, and we'd walk through, and the living room door, which had this patterned, misty, frosty glass on it, it wouldn't open. You have to walk through the kitchen, around into the dining room, then into the living room. And we were just carrying our stuff in. We hadn't even fired up a camera, audio, and we stopped. Well, I stopped first of all because I looked through this glass and I could see a child about that big. And they were wearing something very light blue, whitish light blue, standing, I'd say probably about 6 feet away from the frosted glass on the other side. And I stopped and I looked through the glass and I said, "Hey guys, there's someone standing in the living room." And I asked Phil to join me. Phil looked, he said he could see it. I said, "Mark, have a look." He could see it. We had Peter with us, our part-time investigator. He looked through the glass, he could see it. So there's 4 of us now in the hallway looking through this frosted glass at a figure standing in the living room. We then walked round through the kitchen, through the dining room, and went into that front room through these 2 glass patio doors, and there was no one there whatsoever. We then went back to the frosted glass, looked through there, it wasn't there. So we actually saw the figure, 4 of us. Our investigation that night, we could hear the footsteps, we could hear all the banging. At one point, I actually saw a figure move down the hallway. We had 2 cameras filming and it didn't pick it up. I was so excited at that point because I said to everyone, "We've got that camera and we've got that camera.
Yep.
We've caught it on film." It didn't happen. And I was gutted. I was absolutely gutted. None of us could believe it. We didn't stay there that night. We actually had a premiere booked up in the early hours of the morning. We let the cameras roll. We left. On reviewing all those cameras, there was banging, there was dragging of furniture. And at one point, the figure that I had seen earlier that we didn't capture on camera did walk past the hallway through the frosted glass on the opposite side of the door. And we caught that on camera. Because of the journey that we had to get to the location, it was like 5 hours or so. When we got there, we'd done the investigation straight away. We'd done our intro shots. We got stuck in straight away. So by the time we finished, when we went back to the hotel, usually you have time to sort of unwind. Phil was so tired because he'd been driving. He decided, "I'm just going straight to bed." When he woke up in the morning, he had these 2 huge scratches right the way down his right side.
I've got a picture of that.
It's 2 massive scratches. He doesn't know how they got there. He says it's not him. He's not done it himself. He went to bed, woke up, and there you go. So we went back to the house first thing in the morning to obviously collect up all our equipment that had been running all night. And then he said, "Oh, by the way, I've been scratched." So, I mean, and I'm sure that if someone done that to you, you know, you'd feel something like that. And Phil is 100%. He's a big skeptic.
Yeah,
he just saw that, and I have no idea where that's come from.
I'd been in one night. I think it might have been a Sunday because I was working following day, and when I got to work, one of the supervisors said, "What you been doing?" I said, "Why? What's the matter?" He says, "You've got a huge scratch down your face." I couldn't feel it. I says, "What you mean?" Went into the mirror and it was scratch all the way down. And I'd literally 2 hours previous, I'd just come out of East Drive.
Yeah.
And on one occasion, and I've told people this story, they say it's a bit far-fetched, but we'd been in the house and we come out next morning and we asked Carol, we took Carol key back, and I didn't know Carol really at the time. She knew me as Tortoise Man because I was going to buy a tortoise off her, a tortoise man from Featherstone. And I says, "Can we book next Friday? It's Halloween." And she says, You're already in." I says, "No, I ain't spoke to you, Carol." She says, "You rung me in week." I says, "No, I ain't rung you." She says, "Just 2 minutes." And she got a diary. And she says, "Look, Tortoise Man, Featherstone, Friday, whatever date was." And I says, "I hadn't spoke to her." And when we went in that Friday, it was early hours of the morning. I were in Jean's bedroom and Steve were in Philip's bedroom. And he shouted, because he used to call me Scoob. He says, "Scoob, I've got a werewolf." I says, "What do you mean, Steve?" He says, "Come and have a look." And he'd been taking random pictures. And on one picture, there's a figure stood. I don't know if you've seen that picture. You have, because it's on a figure stood in doorway. And
is this? Did you take this one?
Steve Ebbingway took it, yeah.
This one?
That one.
Shit, I bet.
There were 2 of us in the house that night, and for the rest of the night, we tried replicating that shot, and we just couldn't get it. We estimated it with camera angle to be about 7 foot tall. Steve tracked down, I don't know if any listeners or yourselves have seen a film called The Right, Anthony Hopkins. He plays a Catholic priest teaching a young priest. Steve actually tracked down the young priest, Father Gary Thomas, who's an exorcist in America, and he sent him that photograph, and he was like, "What the hell do you think you're doing going into this house? It demands a full Catholic exorcism." And that photograph now is used in the Vatican exorcist seminars. I just thought at the time, how ironic is it? We've suddenly been booked into house first to capture that shot, that one particular shot.
Mm-hmm.
It was just unbelievable.
So this is at the top of the stairs, then.
That's at the top of the stairs. You'll to right of it, you'll see on wall 2. They look like eyes. They're actually a dimmer switch on wall that's picking up a reflection. So that's it's the figure.
Yeah. Ollie?
Yes? Have you got to go, Jeff?
No. Can you just drop me out for a couple of minutes, please? I'll explain a little bit later, but you know the reason why.
Yep. No worries.
So just give me 2 minutes and I'll be back.
Just wave your hands around when you're back. Yep.
Okay, mate. Cheers, buddy.
So did you write this book? By the way, and if anybody who's watching this live or anybody who's watching this after the show, the book is in the description. You can find it on Amazon. Did you write this book while you were in the house?
Yeah. I mean, each occasion, I recorded as much as I could on digital recorders. But after each visit, I'd make notes and what have you. But I was actually writing the book during visits. Yeah.
And so how could this is a funny question, this, but did you not think about putting this on the front cover? I mean, I love your front cover, don't get me wrong, but I mean, when you're taking a picture, something like that, that's a very, very creepy image right there.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was Steve that took the picture, and as I was writing my book, Steve started writing his own. So we got together and we agreed that it's pointless putting it into two books. So it was Steve's picture, so Steve put it into his book. But yeah, I wish I could have put it into mine, but Steve was doing his own book at the time. So we just decided.
So when he took this picture, did he see it with his own eyes, or was he just taking pictures of it? I mean, it's a blurred shot because you can see a bit of motion blur around the actual edging of the room. Or did he? I mean, how did that occur for him to take that picture?
He actually saw it. He saw movement on stairs, so he spun round and just took. I don't know how many pictures. He took quite a few pictures, but only on one does it show that figure. So, but he actually saw it, caught his attention as it stood on the stairs.
Right, I did not know that you guys took that picture. That sheds a whole new light on it for me. The case itself, then. So do you believe that? So there was the monk that was accused of doing horrible things to young girls, and he was. Did you say that they couldn't get hold of that monk, so they got his brother and they killed his brother? Am I getting that right?
We did a session one night, some EVP recordings, and we're using some software from America. Anthony Sanchez, he used to work for NASA, Ghost and Traps, and he started his job in NASA. He was delving into deep space with radio frequencies and microwaves, trying to pick up alien communication.
Are you in the right place?
Yeah, Anthony then moved and developed some software for Paranormal field, and we'd got in one night, and we got communicating with whatever it is, and I asked it. I says, when you say Father Michael, so he said its name was Michael, and I says, when you mentioned Father Michael, do you mean monk, priest, church related? He says, no, Brother Michael, sorry. He says, no, it's sibling. I says, oh, so it's like a brother, you've got a sibling brother. He says, yeah. Then we got into asking who killed the girls. And he said it weren't him, it was his brother Simon. So it weren't a monk. When I did a bit more research, where 30 East Drive is now, it was a place called Gilcroft, it was an orchard. And I thought, how an orchard, going back 400 or 500 years, an orchard would have been a playground for local kids. They'd go in and pick a bit of fruit and whatever. And I just thought, what a perfect setting for a child killer to live in, an orchard. And what I gathered was that the brother Simon had been killing the girls. He'd done a runner. He must have known his time was coming to an end, and they'd actually got his brother Michael. Hence, when they killed him, they threw him down his own well, the family well, to teach the family a lesson, to poison it, to render it useless.
Right.
And that makes a lot more sense than a priest or a monk being killed and chucked down a well to destroy it. I think it was a punishment for family to render it useless.
You got into this from the film. We got a big echo there. You got into the whole subject of the Black Monk of Pontefract through watching the film when the lights went out. I watched that quite a few years back. I've just watched it again tonight before the show, and I noticed there's only one sibling in that film. There's the daughter. And it doesn't actually show the father die. So the father died, I believe, quite soon after he was locked in the coal room, and he died of a heart attack upstairs in the bathroom. Was that a few nights after that? How, other than there only being one sibling in that film, how close is that film to the story?
I mean, it's filled with artistic license. Joe Pritchard actually died a good 10 years after the 1970, early 70s hauntings. He died early 1980s.
So did he die in that house?
He died in bathroom. Yeah, it was nothing related to paranormal or the Black Monk or anything. I think he'd been out, had some beer, he collapsed in bathroom, and I think he died of an heart attack. So it weren't related. It weren't malicious on any part, spirit or anything. And I think when I've looked at Coal House, I think that can be easily explained. I think he was quite an heavy drinker, was Joe. I think he's gone in Coal House, doors closed behind him with a draft because it's next to front and back door. And I think he's just got disorientated, and he's spun round, and as he's trying to get out at doorway, he's actually been maybe pressing against the wall.
Mind you saying that, Andy, when we was doing our investigation there, Mark, he went into the coal shed and sat on a chair, and he was asking questions. And at one point, he got 3 knocks on the wall, or it could have been the door, 3 knocks that come back. So, you know, it depends on the interpretation you're looking at. You know, was Joe disorientated? Did something really happen? You know, just because he'd had a few beers or whatever. We do know that the door does not lock. You can't lock yourself in there. But we definitely did get knocking coming from within that coal shed.
I'm not staying in the coal shed, Jeff.
Well, you know.
I mean, unfortunately, Joe's not here to answer any questions, so we can just decipher how we see without getting first-hand accounts. It's pretty difficult. You can just assume and put pieces together to form a puzzle.
Sorry, go on, Jeff.
I was going to say we've spoke about the area of the bloody battle. We spoke about the first family that moved in there. I mean, we're talking about when the lights went out. You know, perhaps we need to really sort of, you know, widen it all more on the Pritchard family. You know, when they moved in there. You know, and what actually happened to them. I mean, we're skipping ahead a little bit, you know, because I mean, the film When the Lights Went Out did put a lot of the evidence in there, but the family, you know, experienced they were sort of aimed at whatever this thing is. They were aimed at, you know, at one point Diane got pulled up the stairs by a hair, and people witnessed that. You had the clock at the top of the stairs that got thrown down. There were pools of water. There was like a chalk substance falling from the ceiling, and there was no reason for that whatsoever. Things got moved. Things went missing. So much sort of went on, you know, it was unbelievable. But we haven't really told the story of that. And I think Andy is probably the best person to tell us about the actual Pritchard family, because they only come to light because of media attention. So Andy, tell us a little about this Pritchard family and what they sort of went through.
I mean, when we first went into the house, I didn't know anything about the Pritchards. I'd obviously seen when the lights went out, but so we went in expecting most of our evidence to be centred around Diane's room, sort of thing, and it weren't that at all. Most of the stuff we were picking up were from Philip's bedroom. He weren't mentioned in film at all. When the first
that's the youngest boy. Is that the
eldest
boy? Yeah.
He was the eldest Philip. When the haunting first started, the family had gone on holiday to Cornwall, but Philip were left behind. His gran were looking after him. We later found out that Philip were actually gay, or Philip's still alive, and Joe couldn't accept that. Joe were a coal miner, traditional coal miner in town. He just didn't accept it, and putting two and two together again, I think the reason why Philip was left behind is because of his relationship with his father, Joe. I mean, Joe was a coal miner. Philip was left behind, but most of the evidence base that we've had from East Drive is centred around Philip's bedroom. I mean, I've put it out to people that perhaps people were dabbling in Ouija boards or whatever. But obviously, without speaking to family, you're never gonna know. And to be honest, how much I wanted to contact Jean, because Jean lives probably 100 yard away, 150 yard away, old folks' place. But no matter how I found out where Diane lived, I found out where Philip lived, and I know where Jean lived. But I thought, well, if the family wanted to come out, they'd come out anyway. So I thought, unless we do, it's no point pursuing them if they don't want to talk about it. So
I mean, the family went through so much, as I say, you know, attacks being thrown around, things going missing. It must have been a really horrendous experience for them. Not as much as the Farrer family, obviously. They didn't stay there that long. I mean, the Farrer family were probably only in there a year or just over. But what they actually went through was, you know, some people don't want to believe them, some people do, and I can understand that through the way the media works. Yeah, I mean, Andy, you're right. I mean, Jean Pritchard, I mean, they didn't run out of the house in the end. They stayed there. I mean, what would you do? You've got nowhere else to go. They stayed there. They all went their separate ways in the end. Jean is in a nursing home not far away. I mean, I don't know if she would ever speak about it. We don't know her frame of mind now. I'm not sure of her age now, but you know, after they moved out of that house, that's how the house is now. I mean, during the making of When the Lights Went Out, I mean, Bill Bungie didn't actually know that the house was available. He wanted to film the actual film there inside the house. So he had to replicate the house and everything. I mean, I know
the audience, Jeff. Bill Bungie's the owner of the house now.
Yeah, he was part of the production team on the film When the Lights Went Out, and he actually bought the house. I mean, the story goes that he did stay in the house for a week or so, but he felt so uncomfortable. He thought, "Sod this, you know, I'm not staying here," and he then left the house. And ever since, it just sits there, and it's for anyone that wants to do a paranormal investigation. And I think Andy wasn't online at the time when I mentioned to you, you know, you have to sign a waiver. You can go in if you want, you can sleep there if you want, but it's at your own risk. You take those risks. A lot of people say they have been there, nothing's happened. It's all a load of old tosh. It depends if it just depends if it happens and if it doesn't happen. Luckily, when we were there, it was absolutely amazing. We were coming across all sorts of paranormal stuff going on inside the house. It definitely wasn't fake. And as I say, we'd only been in there 6 minutes and it kicked off. And, you know, obviously you can...
Oh, I can remember one night in particular. It was really quiet and nothing much was happening. And there were just me and Steve in. And it got to about 5 o'clock in the morning. It was so quiet. We decided to call it a day, or call it a night. So we be drinking, I don't know, Pepsi cans and what have you. And we decided to tidy up before we left. So I got all these Pepsi cans, empty Pepsi cans, and I put them on the kitchen side, just as I grabbed them and put them on the side. And I says, what we'll do, Steve, we'll have 5. We'll have a talk in the living room before we go. Packed our equipment up. And as we sat down just talking,
that's when it always happens.
As we sat down talking, we heard like a sound coming from the kitchen. So we jumped up, what's that? And when we went in, all the Pepsi or Fanta cans, whatever, they were all lined up in a perfect line, and middle one were crushed. It was just bizarre. Perfect line, they were lined up. On another, we'd been in, and we were sticking turns to keep key, because we'd been told he'd got a fascination with keys. He'd hide them and what have you. And we gets to home time, we couldn't find key. It was nowhere. I know Carol had to get up to take grandkids to school. So we decided just to sit it out in the house and wait and give a shout through a window. We played I Spy, we'd played everything we could. And then we decided, because the house was a bit unkempt at the time, to do a bit of cleaning, just to pass time. And an old 1970s Hoover in, and Steve plugged it in, turned it on, and it was rattling. So we went and took bag out, and key were actually inside Hoover bag. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. And again, there were just 2 of us in.
I think you know, a lot of people that book out this place, and let's face it, you know, like for us, you know, you travel 5-6 hours, get there, set up all your equipment. I think a lot of people expect too much. They're hoping, oh, this is the most haunted, violent, evil poltergeist place in Europe, perhaps the world, and they expect as soon as they walk in, there's going to have, you know, something's going to be thrown at them, things are going to start moving. It doesn't work like that at all. You know, we have a different way of investigating, and we seem to most of the time have a knack to maybe get in contact with whatever spirit or ghost is at a location. And this place, we sort of played it a little bit cool. We made out we were just moving in for a few days. We wasn't talking about that we're paranormal investigators or anything like that. You know, we're setting things out, and I'm saying, you know what, I could quite buy this place. I'd love to buy this place, you know, and we know that they're going to be listening, you know, and just maybe the way we went about the investigation, that's how we captured all our evidence. And it really annoys me that, you know, you got all these other big time shows that come over that go in there, and they're not bothered about really the investigation. It's just bothered about entertainment and putting it up on a screen, especially when they come over 3,000 miles and start faking things. My colleague Phil was looking at one of the investigations there on the TV the other day, and he spotted another bit of fakery that was going on, and you don't need to do it.
Who was
You
that?
know, you actually do not need to do any fakery whatsoever. But as Andy's right, when you sit down like we did in the living room and you just sit there quiet, just sit down for an hour, all your cameras rolling, audio's running, you'll hear things. It's
Jeff,
just so
what other
quiet.
paranormal teams have been to that house that we may have heard of?
Well, I mean, Andy's been on one of those, which is Paranormal Lockdown, where they come over from America. They travel 3,000 miles to go to 30 East Drive, I'm, you know, I don't want to put myself in court or anything, but I mean, I'm sure they know what they did. And
They're not watching this show, so don't worry about it.
Well, I mean, there's a couple of pieces of fakery that they done, you know, to make it. And let's face it, that they want to make it entertaining. Perhaps at the end of filming there for 72 hours, they didn't have enough, and they wanted to, you know, hype it up and fake. I mean, even the story after interviewing Andy, they got it completely wrong, you know, and it was just all hype. And it's a shame because, you know, these people are on TV getting paid thousands of pounds. How much did it cost to fly them over 3,000 miles on a plane with all their equipment, set all this up to stay in that place for 72 hours? And it just ruins it for us people, the normal people, the proper people that are doing proper investigations. And as a lot of people out there know, if we go to a location, we get nothing, we still turn it into an episode and we say, sorry, here's the history, here's what we've done on the investigation, but we got nothing. And to be frank, it pisses me off that people like that are getting paid all this money just to fake stuff. And, you know, there's been a couple of shows. I believe we're going to come back to it again. Most Haunted. Kill me. You know, in broad daylight, there's a knife sticking out in between the couch. There's a knife.
Have they stuck it in the couch then?
Well,
I mean,
you know,
when Most Haunted did that, I'd just published a book about a week prior. I stayed up and I watched Most Haunted, and I was gutted. I thought they've just destroyed 2 years worth of my work because it was just so elaborate and staged. Fortunately, it worked away because within a week the book made bestseller ranking on Amazon, so it worked away. But when I first saw it, I thought it's the same as when Paranormal Lockdown did it. I went to see Nick Groff, and East Drive was just completely full of articulated lorries, full of equipment. And I thought, what is this costing? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, and as I say, I mean, if you see the episode with Paranormal Lockdown, there is one where Nick is climbing on something to go up into the loft. Katrina's there filming him on the top of the stairs next to the clock, and the clock falls over. And if you look closely, you'll see a piece of string that's on probably like a spring. It's like tied onto a belt onto the clock, and as she moves forward, it comes forward. And I paused it and looked at it, and I went, I think I even told Andy this, you know, why did you need to do that? So not only that, it was repeated a couple of days ago, and my team member Phil said, did you see the episode? I said a few times. He said, I've spotted another one, and that's where a marble gets thrown, and he's looking on the floor for the marble. There's nothing on the floor where he puts his hand, and all of a sudden it's there. He said it was already in his hand. Why would you do that? And when you're faking stuff like that, you can then turn around and say, well, the figure that walked past that door that he caught on camera is also fake. It just ruins the whole lot. Most Haunted, well, they've always done that anyway. Again, you know, it's for entertainment purposes. And that's why you get that at the beginning of all these shows, because it's for entertainment purposes. If they can't get any evidence, then what they're going to do? Fake it. And it just ruins it for every single normal, authentic paranormal group out there. And I think it's really bad and it needs to stop.
What do you make of this one? Do you know who took this?
That's
got red flag written all over it for me, that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love Photoshop, but that's, in my opinion, that's been terribly done. It's just, I don't know, it's nothing. I mean, I did the picture I took on my first visit with the iPhone is just it's stairs, but it's not as stamped ingrained into the photograph as that. I don't know about that one. I just don't know about that one.
That's like the smoke that they describe.
That actual picture that was taken, I forget the name of the team, but they say if you look up in the mirror in the top left, that hand coming around the banister should be reflecting in the mirror, and it doesn't seem to reflect at all.
Is that a mirror just at the top left?
Yeah, what they're saying is that is the hand of the black monk holding maybe a crucifix or some sort of rosary beads in his hand. But if you look in the mirror at the top left, that hand is not being reflected. And apparently there were tests done and debunking done, and it couldn't be faked. So that's what they say.
They're saying this couldn't have been faked.
That's what they're saying. Someone else tried the same effect at the same angle, but their hand could be seen in the mirror.
Okay, what about this one?
Again, is it matrixing? You know, of the stairs.
You mean like a pareidolia, yeah?
Exactly. Who knows? Only the people know who took that picture. But do you see what I mean? It that to me looks like an old woman maybe sitting on the stairs. There's been no reports, as far as I'm aware, Andy, of an old woman in the house or anything like that.
I mean, how I describe, when I described it in book, for my town being at East Drive, I refer to it being as like a paranormal bus stop. Whereas you'll sit in bus stop and there's 3 or 4 people waiting for a bus, and you'll get to know little snippets about them as you're listening to them. Bus pulls up, then group of people get on, and another group of people get off. So it's completely different again. So then you'll hear little snippets, then another bus will pull up. That's how I would describe it. Another way I didn't, best for me to describe it is, I don't know if you're familiar with fishing, but you can go fishing in a river or a pond, and you're getting loads of little bites on your float, loads of little nibbles and what have you. Then all of a sudden, a pike comes into what we call a swim, and all these little nibbles, all these little fish disperse. Then you get nothing. Then suddenly pike then it probably disappear into another part of the river or another part of the pond. Then you're getting your little nibbles, your little snippets of EVPs or bangs.
Yeah.
And what have you.
I must admit also the Chequerfield's estate when it was built was one of the biggest estates ever in Europe, and I've done a little bit of research myself. And even though when Jean Pritchard, who lived at number 47 there, moved into 30 East Drive, and then you had Barbara and Bill that moved out of number 30 into her house, number 47, the reports of all of that estate said that they were having paranormal experiences and seeing children and seeing figures, and the whole place just seems to be haunted.
We when I was doing book, we got in touch with, did a few doorstep knockings and what have you, and a lot of the older generation that are still living around East Drive admitted that they were getting the same sort of thing. But they'd seen the ridicule the Pritchard family received in late 60s, early 70s, so they didn't want to talk about it. But the whole area is exactly the same. It's not the one house, it's the ground. It's the ground that's haunted.
I remember another house as a kid, which, I mean, I don't, you know Pontefract quite well, don't you, Andy? So if you know where the Valley Gardens is, so up past there, and there's the Mill Hill Lane, where it has the old mill, which is my mum and dad's house. But if you keep going straight down there, I think there still is a house there, but I think somebody's bought it and done it out. But there was a house there that stayed dormant. We moved there when I was about, I think I was about 5, and this house was, I remember being a teenager and walking past this house with my mates, and we used to dare each other to maybe break into the house. So we were a little bit, we were little bastards at the time, but we never broke into any houses, but it was abandoned. And there was a house that was people said that people spoke about this house more than they spoke about the East Drive one, but I can't remember the name of the house. But nobody would go near it. Nobody would buy his house. But it's interesting when you say that about Pontefract being very haunted.
I actually drove past it today.
You know which house I mean?
Yeah. Unfortunately, because at lockdown, because I used to go past it, especially when we were doing 30 East Drive, and I used to count how many times people had moved in, and I used to count then how many weeks it'd take for to let sign to be put back up. Last time it was occupied, as far as I know. It looked occupied today, but before lockdown, when I went past practically every other day, an Asian family had moved in. So I don't know, then lockdown came, so I don't know actually how long they lasted. But people had moved in, and within two months, it'd be to let again.
Back for sale, yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed it was always on and off for sale, but I was very young at the time and probably didn't understand the whole thing. I didn't know if people was renting it or whatever. It was abandoned for years.
Yeah, it's all been looked now.
It sounds like a place that we should go to and investigate, doesn't it?
We tried getting in touch with letting agents, and they're very cagey about overlet to view it and what have you. I think it's an elderly woman that owns it. She's got a flat in Pontefract, and she leases it out. But we've tried quite a few times to get viewings, and they must have sussed what we were up to, and we could never get in to do a viewing. So unfortunately, but yeah, legend has it, it's far a lot worse than 30 East Drive is.
So I get the inkling here about the town of Pontefract is probably more the culprit because of what went on with, and how well you got Pontefract Castle rather than just the house. It makes me wonder how many other houses.
It's the land, Ollie. The land with the bloody battle, and also what you've got to remember is, when things go on like this, it draws in more things. If you've got negativity, it's going to draw in negativity. And when they built this estate, along with 30 East Drive, it was built on bloodied land. What the hell went on there? Apart from just that, who knows? And you've got this story of this monk, molesting children, killing them. You've got someone wrongly accused. It's not just that one location; it's the whole place. It's not the houses. It's not what goes on inside the houses. It's the land.
I mean, I've always said, because sometimes when we've gone, we've took Cluniac music and what have you, and it has generated activity. So I think there is monks that haunt the area, but I think going back 600 years, there's a well. Monks were farming all the land around there, and I think hot summer's day, fresh water, eat a day, they'd have a rest, have a cold drink of water, a talk before they resume work. So I think the monks that do haunt East Drive have actually just visited a place that they loved. They sat down at the well having a cold drink, a bit of respite from the labour in fields. So there definitely is monks, I would say, that do frequent East Drive in the area. But I think that's what they revisited a place that no one loved. That's about it.
And obviously the monk that's been seen at 30 East Drive, the spirit is probably just taking on the image of a monk.
Yeah, but like I said in book, if 30 East Drive, I mean, when it first started with Pritchard's, I think it gave a form that would be recognisable, and monks and Pontefract coming out hand in hand. So I think it represented itself as a monk, because it knew that it'd be recognised as that. I always said that the 30 East Drive would have been in Florida, it would have represented as Mickey Mouse, as daft as it sounds. You know, just because people had recognised, had associated that place with Mickey Mouse, they associate Chequerfield with monks or cluniacs. So I think it just took on a form that people had recognised.
I'm going to have to go now, guys. And
yeah, I understand, Jeff. We spoke about that before.
Yeah, I'm just going to explain to everyone why that is. As a lot of people know, that we do our show on YouTube, and maybe some that look at the end credits will see a lady's name come up that's called Liz, our researcher. I have mentioned her name before in some of our previous shows. So Liz is 86 this year. She's not just our researcher, she's my mother as well. And just before Christmas this year, she come down with cancer of the throat and also the mouth. It's inoperable. They can't operate on her. It will kill her. And so she's gone downhill very, very quickly. So I'm actually looking after her at the moment in this house. So I have to keep an eye on her, make sure she has medicines and things like that, and give her a comfortable time. All my close friends know this. Ollie, you've known that. Andy, I've already spoken to you about that earlier. So a lot of our fans and people out there don't know this. So it's a bit of a tough time for me, but we still got to crack on and carry on the best that we can. So, but anyway, I'm going to leave the show, guys. Andy, it's been a pleasure meeting you. It's been a long time coming. We're definitely going to see you at 30 East Drive when we arrange our investigation. Ollie's going to be coming as well. So we'll all be able to meet up in person. It's going to be an absolutely brilliant time. I'm still trying to arrange everything with the owners. So it's going to be fantastic. We've got loads of new equipment to try out. I'm spending hundreds at the moment on new devices, new equipment to take along with us that's never been used before. So it's going to be fantastic. It really is. So I thank you both for having me on your show. And thanks so much,
Jeff. Hey, thank you very much. And you look after yourself, look after your mum. And
thank you.
Take it easy, mate. I'll speak to you soon.
All the best. Thank you so much, guys.
Look forward to meeting up. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Cheers, Jeff. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Jeff's just trying to work out how to leave. It's the big red cross, Jeff.
Oh, I've got my mouse over here. You see, it's
all right. Trying to do it in your mind.
We're all wireless. We're posh down here. We got wireless.
What a great ending there, mate. So Andy, I mean, my show generally only goes for about an hour and a half to an hour and 40. So there's not much time left. But what I want, let me just shut this door. There's not much time left, but so the book, we can find that on Amazon. How long did it take you to write the book?
For about 2 years. Right. Because most of my time took up with research at house. So I was spending a hell of a lot. I mean, we didn't just go in on at night. We'd go in during day and what have you. So most of my time I actually spent at the house. Then I'd get back and I had to write it. I had to have it obviously proofread. So all in all, about 2 years.
Thank you, Lee, for the super sticker. So this book, how quickly did it become a bestseller?
I published it about a week before Most Haunted aired the Halloween special, and probably a week before, then a week later, or about 2 weeks later, it became a bestseller on Amazon. Yeah, and I mean it's still selling. It's still selling.
You've got other books now as well, haven't you? Have you done a recent book?
I did one. It was obviously pandemic has put all to everything, but I was doing like a pocketbook series. First one was The Mill of the Black Monks at Barnsley, which I had practically free range, 1,000-year-old pub. Well, it is now a pub. It's a restaurant. Then the next one was going to be about Lead Chapel at Tadcaster, Warwick Roses at Towton. And then I've got one that's probably 3/4 finished, Beyond Your Horizons. That's a compilation of all different hauntings from local area.
So it's very much focused all about like kind of the paranormal, that sort of thing.
They are now, yeah. But I mean, previous books weren't. So
You've muted yourself, Andy. You're that used to you doing it now.
One, I spent 20 years looking for my grandfather's family in former Yugoslavia. So that was the first book, Displaced. Then I did a fictional book, paranormal orientated, but it's fiction. When Spirits Break Free. Then I did, I'm trying to think now. Then I did The Black Monk of Pontefract, Don't Look Back in Anger. I did another fictional book based in Yugoslavia during World War II, The Division Bell. Then I did the Mill of the Black Monks, then just before lockdown. So,
that's a Pink Floyd song, that is it?
I know. I know.
Yeah. It's a great album. What made you pick the name Don't Look Back in Anger?
I don't know, for some reason I can't. I can't write a book until I've come up with a title, as daft as it sounds.
I mean, it's a great title and a great band.
Because at time, when I was first researching East Drive, I'd got this story of this monk that had been hung wrongfully because it was another monk or his brother that had been hung. And there were a lot of hatred based, and perhaps was that why the activity was so violent. And it just came, Don't Look Back. I must have been listening to Oasis, but I just thought it quite fitting, Don't Look Back in Anger.
Yeah. So it's like your message to him, like, you don't need to kind of take it out on everybody else.
Exactly. Like yeah. I mean, same as the Division Bell, that's about a novel about World War II in Yugoslavia, and it's about the divides between Muslim, Catholic, and Orthodox. Obviously, right. The Division Bell.
Yeah.
But I've got to have a title for some reason before I can start. Yeah.
I get it. You work around the title. That's kind of the same whenever I try and pick and do a YouTube video. I kind of like need the title to inspire me to talk about something. But
of course you do,
this case with this house, and Jeff did say we kind of need to speak about the family, and this is the intriguing thing for me because whenever, I mean, like for yourself, you write a book about it, but you write a book about it because obviously you've got a passion for the subject, and I think your thing is history, and it's kind of moving. Sounds like it's moving into more paranormal history. Yeah. All right, by saying that, yeah. So it always makes me wonder, with a family like this, with a case like this, and they briefly showed it in the film where I don't know if it was just artistic license, where the father invited a load of people into the house, said, come and check out the house, and they give him a few bob to pay for it. What's the family getting at? What did the family ever get out of this? Because they don't speak about it now, do they? Nobody approaches the family.
As far as I can gather, they've got nothing. Financially, they didn't make anything out of it. I don't know what if Colin Wilson probably give them a few pounds when he was doing his research, but I mean, as today's standards, film has been produced, there's been books written about it, was paranormal teams going in and making money. But Pritchard's didn't.
But nobody interviews what's left of the family.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I mean,
I would like if anybody from the family is watching, obviously get in touch with Andy for his next book. But get in touch with me. I'd love to get you on the show. There is my email.
I mean, you've got to be careful. You've got to remember that the family members are still alive, so you've got to be careful what information you give out about them.
Yeah, of course you have.
You know what I mean? Because it's sensitive. You're talking about living people, so you've just got to be careful.
And maybe from what happened, I mean, I don't know how it looked like. It was a popular case back then. I mean, what was it? The 70s?
68 and 70.
Yeah.
I think it was.
So, I mean, maybe they went through that much of an ordeal. Then they thought, you know what, we don't want this in his lives.
They'd just been ridiculed. But I did one recording. I think my daughter had come with me because she's got a paranormal team, and we actually picked Joe Pritchard up on EVP recordings. And
for the audience, that's the father that died.
Yeah, Joe Pritchard. And I asked if Joe were in the house, and as clear as anything, this EVP came through, and it says he haunts. And I didn't know much about the family at the time. And I says, okay, then I says, can you remember Jean? And straight away it says, me younger woman. I thought, yeah. I says, can you remember Diane? And it says Princess. And I says, what about Philip? Can you remember Philip? And I mean, swearing, it says, if I fucking must. Right. I didn't know anything.
Oh, well, I shouldn't laugh because that's the son that he couldn't accept the fact it was gay.
Yeah.
Right.
And when I spoke to Carol, who knew family, Jean were younger than Joe, hence the younger woman. I asked about his relationship with Diane, and she said that Diane was Joe's princess. He adored her. And I says, what about Philip? And he says, Joe didn't get on with him at all because he was gay.
You'd think in the afterlife, though, you'd forget all that and it wouldn't make a difference.
You would, wouldn't you? Yeah, but it was just sad, really.
It's always a weird one for me because, I mean, I don't know if Jeff told you the background with myself. I'm a UFO alien channel originally, and I started to speak to people like yourself and Jeff that speak about this subject, but there was people that I was interviewing that were speaking about UFOs, but then they'd start speaking about the paranormal. That got me interested in this subject. Have you ever come across anything that you, like UFO related with? Because it usually follows people.
I was going back years. I was working at Charleston Colliery, and I mean, I can say now, but everybody used to fiddle a bit of time, and I was claiming overtime, and a lot of times I'd sneak home. And one particular night, at about 7:30, I had to go back to the pit to put my checks in. You used to put a check in before you went underground, so we knew you were underground, then you had a brass check when you come out. So I went back up to the pit, and I'd got a motorbike at the time, and there was a light in the sky, and I tracked it all the way to the pit. I didn't know where it was. When to do my business, what I had to do at the pit, got back out, and this light, it has already turned a full circle around the pit, and it was heading back to where I was going. So I set off, and I'm watching it all the time, and I decided to take a different route to get a bit closer to this light. And as I got to the top of an hill, I know it sounds daft, but my motorbike engine cut out, and I'd freewheeled down an hill, past a car that was parked up with no lights on, and this, I don't know what it was. It was probably half a mile away, and probably 100 metres high, cigar-shaped, really bright light, and there were two men stood watching it, and they'd come out at a car that were parked up. And I says, my bike's cut out. He says, your car's cut out. And this thing,
Wow.
it was there. Then suddenly it went. Then this light was miles away, moving away.
And what year was this?
No, 80,
1980s.
80-ish. Yeah. But as soon as it disappeared, I got my motorbike started and their car started. I didn't report it, actually. My wife told me to report it to I forgot, a lady who was writing UFO books, but I didn't get no feedback. That's an experience I've had, really.
Was it Linda Moulton Howe, was it?
I can't remember. Ollie. So it's a long time ago.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked you that is because when you said that your mate took this picture, it reminds me of what a lot of my guests speak about, as in shadow figures.
Yeah.
And some believe that they're not actual ghosts. They are something completely different. So, I mean, I know, obviously, you think that's the brother or whatever you think that may be.
Yeah.
In terms of shadow figures, what's your take on them?
I mean, I have read quite a lot. She passed away last year. Rosemary Gwillan. Don't know if you've heard of her.
But that name rings a bell. I don't know why.
Yeah, she's really into demonology and alien abductions, and she always made reference to shadow people being actually alien of origin and not supernatural like spirits or ghosts. So it does make sense. Yeah.
Do you think that they can both exist at the same time, though? As in ghosts and aliens?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I mean, years ago, I used to think that if you can see a spirit from past as a ghost, could UFOs be an apparition from future, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete
if you can see something from past, surely you'd be able to see something again from future.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I think I may have spoke about this on the channel before, but my first ever girlfriend, I was with her for about 2 years. I really got along with the parents, and her mum told me a story about an alarm clock in her bedroom, which was a digital alarm clock, and we were talking. I think she said it was in the early 90s. One night she woke up and she saw this little girl staring at the alarm clock, just no interest in her, just staring at the alarm clock. And she said that she was kind of like the classic, what people describe as white looking, like kind of see-through-ish, but wearing older clothes. And that kind of got me thinking, I wonder if it's possible that some ghosts we're seeing something in time, that this little girl could see the exact same thing in the future, but she saw this alarm clock and thought, what is that? That's intriguing. Maybe but then again, that doesn't explain things being chucked at you, and it doesn't explain a grandfather clock being chucked down the stairs that happened at 30 East Drive. That doesn't explain the physical aspect of it. Unmute, mate. Unmute.
Most bizarre thing that happened, we'd gone up one afternoon, Saturday or Sunday afternoon, for me and my daughter, another lad, Glenn Gentry, and my daughter was getting quite brave because it was good. I don't think she would have been as brave if it would have been dark. It was quite sunny, and she was asking it to throw something at her. We were in the living room. Door. I was sat next to.
This is at 30 East Drive.
30th Drive, yeah. I was sat on sofa near to hallway door, glass door, which were closed. Glyn was sat in corner next to French doors, glass French doors, which were closed. And my daughter was sat in other corner, Sasha. And she's been a bit brave because it's daylight. And she was telling it to throw something at her. Suddenly she screamed out that something had hit her in chest. And when we looked, it was a big plastic button. It was on carpet just in front of her. So that carpet, when I used to go into East Drive, I used to take as many photos as I could when I first went in. So I could always cross-reference from, if we thought something had moved, I could say, no, it hadn't, because this is... When I looked back, there was nothing on the carpet, but when I looked back at photos, the plastic button was large, it was about an inch and a half in diameter. We were actually on the table in the kitchen. And just before my daughter felt it hit her chest, I heard a little click, a little chink outside of me on glass window. And that, I know it sounds strange, but that button had somehow passed through glass and hit her.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, going back with aliens and what have you, I mean, how things move from one dimension to another. That was just impossible. You couldn't pass a plastic button through a glass window.
No.
But it had passed through it somehow. I don't know, Jean used to complain that she had to keep eggs locked up in a box because it got a thing with eggs, it'd smash eggs. And on one occasion, one morning, all eggs were smashed on kitchen floor, but box were locked. So somehow these eggs had morphed out of a locked container to be smashed on kitchen floor.
In the film, when the little girl, she gets dragged to the top of the stairs by a hair, and in the film it pins her up and tries to strangle her. It tries to hang her. In terms of what happened, as far as I know she got dragged up the stairs by the hair, but is that a bit of artistic license there with the hanging thing?
I don't know, because I used to work with a lad at Pitt, and older than me, and his wife, when he was a teenager, his wife, later, or we buried later, she knocked about with Diane Pritchard, and he said that story was correct. That Diane,
he tried to hang her.
Yeah. But that's another ironic thing. We'd gone with a SLS camera, Kinect cameras, scattered laser system.
Yeah.
And I invited...
that's what Jeff uses, isn't it? The Kinect,
yeah. I invited somebody from work, a girl from work. She was interested in it. I said, well, come along and I'll take you out and we'll show you. And we picked a figure up with SLS camera, and it was stood next to her. And we asked it to wave. And it's on YouTube. And it waved. It actually waved at us. Then suddenly it seemed to lift up about a foot off floor next to Jade. And its head went to one side. And we looked and its feet were twisting round and it was hanging. And when we told Jade, it's as though it's next to you, but it's hanging. And she burst out into tears, run downstairs, went outside. And when we went out, what she says was, it's taking piss. I says, why? She says, I've just lost a friend. He's committed suicide. He's hung himself. So it was like mocking.
Oh my word.
Yeah, it was mocking her. I mean, it's uploaded onto YouTube, but it's definitely mimicking being hung.
So she was saying that the ghost was making fun of her friend that committed suicide.
It committed suicide a few days before, and this figure then on SLS camera were next to her, twisting round as it hanging from a rope. So it was just bizarre.
That sounds sinister to me. That sounds like, that doesn't sound like your average friend, Casper the Friendly Ghost thing. Do you think because the film depicts obviously that there is a child there as well, and Jeff. I think what Jeff was like kind of making out that the child followed the family there, whereas the child is not necessarily one of the monk's victims. It is. Would I be right by saying that?
I don't know, because East Drive, I don't know. It's a place where you can get different spirits or different hauntings each time you go. It's so, like I said, it's like a bus stop, and people get on the bus, spend a bit of time in bus shelter, talking and what have you, then they'll jump on another bus. Another set of people come out. It's completely different. The only thing that remains same, what we found, is there's something in control there, and that's same every time you go. All the other things, they're completely different.
You've heard of Skinwalker Ranch?
Yeah.
That's a similar thing that they say about that this Skinwalker Ranch, it's almost like a place that it's open to all of this, not just one thing, but kind of the whole thing. Like, there's some sort of opening somewhere that's letting things through, or whatever it is, but it comes in many different forms. Is that what you're saying with East Drive, that this place is not just necessarily one ghost or one thing? It's many things.
It's many things. And on occasion, we've had it on SLS camera, and it comes through as a small figure, probably 2 or 3 foot tall, as though it's a child. But then the more you film it, it just starts growing, and suddenly it's this 2 or 3 foot figure has morphed into something 6 foot tall. I think a lot of cases where it comes to us as children to get your attention, to get sympathy, if you know what I mean. Especially if you go in with some ladies or mums and what have you, and they've got particular sympathy when it comes to children, it'll portray as a child to get the attention, to get the sympathy. But I don't think a lot of these cases where it is actually a child, it's just morphing to get your attention, bit of sympathy.
Like a shapeshifter.
Yeah. You've had it on quite a few occasions where it's 3 foot tall, playful, then suddenly when you get near it, it morphs and it's 6 foot tall. It's looking down at you, which is quite scary.
I could speak to you for hours, but we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes now. So 30 East Drive, ladies and gentlemen. Andy Evans. Andy, just explain to everybody where they can find you, where they can find your book, and you're welcome on again. Next time we'll spend a little bit more time with the sound, finding out what the problem is there. I have no idea what it is.
No,
we actually moved you to a different room. Maybe it's the ghost.
Maybe, yeah. The book's available on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback. Lulu Press. It's got quite a few online bookstores as well.
It is. I put it in the description.
Yeah.
Amazon.
Can I just give a big shout out to team members?
Yes,
make it time. Obviously, a big shout out to Sharon, my daughter Sasha, her husband Mark, Carol and Sue. They're members at Dark House Paranormal, which you can find on YouTube.
Oh, so those been in the chat tonight?
There might have been.
I think I might have noticed a couple of their names. It's hard to look at the chat when you're speaking to a guest. But yeah, welcome to Alien Addict, people. And this is the thing for me at the minute, Andy. It started out as a UFO channel. It started out as a Mars channel where I'd look at little pareidolia stuff on Mars, where faces and stuff like that, just pareidolia. But now it's kind of like it's morphed into something else where I get guests on, and they come on, they send me an email. Here is my email, people, for anybody that has a good story that is true. Well, you can tell me it's true. Whether I choose to believe you or not is a different thing. But I want your story. You're welcome on Alien Addict. It doesn't matter if it's aliens, UFOs, or paranormal related, or a bit of everything, because the more and more I speak to these people, the more and more I find that it keeps going back to the paranormal, which I find extremely interesting. And this is kind of the direction that I'm going in. But Andy, what I'm going to do, thank you so much for joining us. The book is in the description, people. Check it out. Andy Evans, thank you, mate. I'm going to drop you out just for a second, and I'll just say the goodbye to the guests.
Cheers, Ollie. It's been a pleasure.
No worries, mate. I'll just remove you for a sec. Thank you so much, people, for joining us. Everybody in the chat that's been live. I can't thank you all enough. The support that you guys give me is awesome. I'm sorry that I don't get to see everybody in the chat all the time. Like I say, it is hard. I kind of need, a little dog's body on the side that just it'll go to the chat and say, right, you need to read this one out. But at the same time, again, it's when you are interviewing people and you have so many questions or whatever you want to speak to them about, it's a bit weird when you. I need to do some live stuff with just speaking to you guys. Maybe I'll do that. But yeah, guys, check out the descriptions. My Patreon channel's in there as well. But most of all, if you are a reader, check out Andy's book. And if you do fancy a new T-shirt, check out my merch, because I have done some brand new designs. I've just launched it. I haven't really put an advert out on YouTube as yet, but we have 3 designs there. Obviously, we've got the logo in the middle there, and we've got the alien, which did cause me a few problems to start off with until they realized that I did hand draw it, and they said it was okay. And the shadow figure type thing, I don't know what it is. I just made it up. But yeah, it looked great on hoodies, T-shirts, you name it. You get it on mugs, these wet drinking utensils, and it is good quality. And I will be rocking one of these when mine arrives, because I've ordered a few. But guys, again, thank you so much. Good night. God bless. Mind the bugs don't bite. I'm Alien Addict.